So my name's Mason Wheelock. I am from Saratoga Springs, New York. I live in Savannah, Georgia, and I go to SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design, for fashion marketing and menswear design.
Wow, dope. That's very cool, man.
Am I speaking loud enough? Can you hear me good?
Yeah, I'm still messing with the mixer a little bit. It's really hard because, although the convenience factor of the phone is, it's easy to jump on a phone call, patch it into the mixer, but there is, hiss, of course. So it's kind of like I just have to play around with the compressor and get it all dialed in. And the hardest part of it all, man, is that everybody's phone is different, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the biggest challenge.
I also have like the Bluetooth speaker. Should I just put it on like speakerphone off my phone, or?
Well, what I would say is whatever is the most comfortable for you.
Okay, yeah.
And I love taking long drives, so I know where you're at. That and like I said, I'm not in a particular hurry, so I want to make sure we get the level perfect. Now, I know I was really ready for the interview last week, and then now I almost feel like I totally dropped the ball because I think I was not introduced to you, but I think we connected through Mike SB, correct?
Yeah, Mikey.
So how do you know Mike?
So I knew Mike through Instagram. When I moved down, or I guess when I started school last year. Before I started school last summer, I had a music festival in New York. It was called Adventure Fest. It was like a small scale music festival / motocross ride weekend for like my friends and family. And one of the artists that I went to high school with was performing. Kind of up and coming artists to come and perform, and I had been in touch with Mike like all year last year, coming up to the event, and if I could have figured out a way to get him up there before.
The call keeps on cutting out. That was really good. I'm trying to think what to do. So maybe we should take your phone off of the Bluetooth.
Okay.
Because you were nailing it. It's just literally it would go to 0. Like I couldn't hear anything for.
Can you hear me much better now?
Yeah. Obviously, it's going to determine once you start talking, and then we'll be able to gauge it. So you said you had a little festival, and someone that you went to school with was in the festival. So just continue down, and I'll probably we'll eventually, once I get the levels perfect, we'll actually start it officially. Okay. But this is basically just to get the quality as good as possible.
True. Yeah, whatever. So, Anthony Scarinch, his rap name is Zio, and he's from Saratoga Springs as well. I think he's 24, 25 years old now. He's made some music with Mike SB before, and I've kind of just connected with Mike to meet new people and talk to different creatives. So I reached out to Mike, and we would talk about this and that. And he doesn't live that far from me because I'm in South Georgia, and it's only I think 4 or 5 hours from me to Mike. So that's nothing. We could always. I've been wanting to link up with him. I've never met him in person. We just have talked all the time on social media. But
yeah, and I'm in the same position as you as well. I know him through Instagram as well, so we're both on the same point.
Really cool kid, such a positive outlook on everything, and whenever I hop on social media for the day or whatever, I see Mike's posts. For whatever reason it is, Instagram's algorithm puts Mike's posts at the top of my feed every time. So it's like, good morning, guys. and it always gets me so hyped because I'm like, hell yeah, that's what I need every day. You know, I get on
Oh
there
yeah.
and he's like, well, good morning, guys. Hope you're having a beautiful day. And then Instagram also shows me one of my best friends, and he's on Instagram with some positive stuff, and it's good stuff. So
Yeah, and I think that's, very important, that finding like-minded people. And I think now that we do have social media, it really helps us expand out of our environment, and I don't know locally what type of team that you have, but it really helps, and if you could talk a little bit on, people that have helped you build the different pages or businesses. That Do you have any team around you? Do you do a lot of the production yourself, or what does it look like?
okay, so with Adventure Brand, it's kind of been just me for the past 5 years since I started it. I have my best friend Caleb Broom. He helps me out with graphic design and um, he made the flyers for the festival. So helps me out with like marketing and stuff, and um, gives me insight. And I have other people who give me some insight of like, hey Mason, maybe you should do this or do that. And a lot of people tell me, hey, you should do this or do that, but there's a few people that I listen to,
Yeah.
and they have good stuff to say, and they've been with me since I started this in high school, which is cool. But as far as around Savannah, since I just started there last fall, I'm still like building a team, kind of. I'm just trying to surround myself with like-minded people, like you said, and build the physical circle up as well. Because I have, through social media and all around the country, I have a pretty decent, like, strong circle of people who help me out just mentally with the brand, just cool people to talk to. I see them doing awesome stuff, and it inspires me to keep doing what I'm doing. It's like motivating. So when I wake up in the morning and say I go on Instagram and there's Mike SB and he's on there already in the morning, first thing I see is some positive things, and he's already had his day going. He's at work driving the van around. I'm like, all right, let's get my day going, and it kind of motivates me. Even little things like that. And then my buddy Carrington, he's out in California riding his dirt bike right now, making music. That inspires me to like, all right, what I need to be riding my dirt bike. I need to be making clothes.
Oh, yeah, and the craziest part of it is that was one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, because seeing a bit of your content inspired me. That I've got two 1977s, an IT 175 and a DT 250, 1977 Yamahas, and at a certain point we had them running, but I took the carburetor apart on the 175, because it was only starting with the choke, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead, take out the carburetor, clean it up. But guess what, I forgot. I took pictures of the entire process taking the carburetor apart, but I never took a picture of the carburetor being on the bike. Right.
Super.
And but I still knew how to put it all back together. That wasn't the problem, because at the time I was a mechanic. You'll see on my channel that there's a playlist that is called 1991 B4C Police Package Camaro. So I actually restored a 1991 B4C package Camaro. In front of our house, we have a 3,600 square foot building that we rented out to a mechanic, right? So while I was working for him, I was like, well, crap, I'm getting parts at cost. I might as well go out and get a project car, right? So I took the carburetor up, back to the bike. I took the carburetor out, with the owner, the mechanic, but it still, from that point, 2, 3 years ago, it's not running, so seeing some of your content. So how did the bikes get involved with your brand? Like, how long have you been riding? Talk to us a little bit about that background.
Okay, so my dad raced when he was a kid or a teenager, and his uncles raced. And it was kind of like he was brought up into that family. And so when I was 4 years old, my parents bought me a bike, and I started racing when I was 5. And I raced like locally
With
and
like
regional.
KTM's, or like what type of bikes?
I started with a PW50. Actually, I started with a CR70, and mom and dad were like, "Nope, he doesn't need gears. That's a little sketchy for him."
So what's a CR, Honda?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It actually might have been called like an XR or something back in the day, because we're talking.
Yeah, because I had a little TTR 90 as well that I got rid of.
Yeah, we're talking 2000, 2001
Little
or
pit
something.
bike.
Yeah, exactly.
It had a bigger sprocket on it and a little exhaust pipe, and I feel bad about getting rid of it, but I'm 6'2", and at a certain point, riding a 90cc, and I, jumped it a ton, so all the spokes were all loose, and it was a lot of fun. But yeah, man.
Yeah, you beat the hell out of it. You got your money's worth.
Yep. And it was already, I think we picked it up for like $1,000 off the eBay back in the day. It was like a 2002, I believe. It didn't have the electric, or did it have the electric start? I think it did have the electric start, but we just never put in a battery type of thing. You know how it goes. You're 13, you're 10 years old, 13 years old. You are an electric start. It's called your right leg.
Go ahead and kick it over.
But I think I got all the level settled, but we already have had such a great conversation. So, I don't know how much of this that I'll keep. Usually, I record the whole thing,
Okay.
and we can, start from the beginning if we want, because I do finally have the audio, really dialed in.
Yeah, if you want to do it, so that way it's like,
just in case,
quality.
and plus we've kind of vibed a little bit, and for me, I've produced or helped produce a lot of interview series in the city, and it's almost like people.
Where are you located?
Cincinnati, Ohio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and a lot of the companies that I've worked with basically like treat people like cattle, where you're not interacting with the people, you interview them and then they leave. There's no sort of business or any type of relationship that's being developed. That I'm not here trying to hit licks. Like you said, I'm genuinely trying to develop relationships with people. And I'm not in a hurry. Surprisingly, like you said, Mike may be out with his van, or you've got your job. This is, unfortunately, I'm crazy enough to be doing this full time. So I've had the opportunity, but I also had a mobile auto detailing business at 15, which kind of sparked my entrepreneurship. And I didn't recently, and so whether or not I add this in or not, we'll find out. But I want to at least give you a little bit of background about me.
Definitely.
So I had that detailing business, but I knew, at 15 years old, I wasn't going to detail for the rest of my life. That, that's pretty physically demanding, smelling chemicals, and also the liability factor. That if you're detailing $80,000 cars or $100,000 cars, which you have to, because if you want to make money, you've got to be detailing expensive cars. Because who's going to be able to afford a $300 detail? Somebody with some money, right?
Yeah.
And so I realized this, that, at the end of the day, I could only help people reach their total potential. That if they had a shitty car, I can only help it reach its total potential, right? And I realized that, a lot of the people that I was working with, friends and family, their emotional support was endless, but their financial support was limited, right?
Yeah.
That, they wanted to help me, they wanted to provide me with business, but who the hell can, clean their car 2-3 times a year for, $200-300 a pop? No family or friend can really swallow that, unless you actually have a business or something, right?
Yeah.
So after I realized that the liability factor, that insurance I was looking at was, 26, $3,000 a year, like 1,600 $1,600 every 6 months. And I'm like, Christ, and that's just for cars under $100,000. So if I was really gonna, work out of the shop or, have more liability, I just decided that I would focus not so much on detailing cars as I was developing a brand. So then I could approach my customers not from the standpoint of, hey, let me detail your car, more so, hey, let me sell you myself, right? Because who could afford to pay $300 to detail their car? Somebody with a business, someone who's somewhat successful. So, I developed my logo. The TP logo for my podcast was originally the logo for my detailing business, right?
Okay.
So my whole business model was getting my customers to look at me, having a, I'm 15, 16, 17 years old, a full uniform, embroidered, everything. I wanted my customers to look me in the face and go, why are you detailing cars? You know?
Yeah.
The same type of background where you're in with marketing and different things like that. And at the time I also went to college for business management where I got a 3.8 GPA, Dean's List. And the whole detailing business model of developing relationships with the customers was successful. And I ended up getting hooked up with a marketing company that I did promotional products and different things like that. So I kind of met, the son of the owner. I detailed his cars of the embroidery company that I got the clothing from, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I went from detailing to this marketing franchise, which has since been sold. And while I was going to college, whenever I would get into a group situation, I'd always do all the work because I had a 3.8 GPA. I had to do all the work. If I wanted to get a good grade, I had to do all the work. And
Yeah.
for the first time ever, I met someone that actually did their work. Now, I still had to do 75% of the work, but, this gentleman that I met did at least his part. So I was like, all right, wow, like maybe I should get into business with him. And he had a company called College Beats that he founded. And I'm not sure how heavy you dug into, the podcast that I sent you, the College Beats logo. Did you notice that?
I did not.
Okay. So College Beats is a DJ company now, but it used to promote music. So it had about 20,000 followers on Twitter. And back then, when I was going to school, I was like, oh wow, 20,000 followers. But in reality, years later, you realize a lot of these followers are, follow for follow type of schemes. And but at the time going to college, I was like, oh wow, 20,000 customers, you
Yeah.
know? And so I started consulting for this company over the past several years. And we went from zero to the majority of the content that they produced was all copy written. So their Twitter to this day is suspended because all they did was promote copyrighted material, right? Like that's how they got those type of views. So
Yeah.
when I came to the table, what I wanted to do was bring some groundwork to the table and actually find original artists such as Mike SB in order to collaborate and produce original content, right?
Yeah.
After 3 years, the owner, after producing content with Post Malone, several radio stations in the area, they not once posted a single video that I produced for them. So,
Damn.
yeah, so I basically developed relationships with everyone in town, spent probably a solid $20,000, give or take, on my time and, a computer, microphones, camera. Whenever I do anything, I go 150%. It's kind of a curse,
Yes. No, but
as
that's good though. Invest,
all entrepreneurs are.
yeah,
Um,
invest in yourself is the number one thing you should be doing.
yeah. So, and for me, when I was talking to the owner, he said, "Hey, well, if you buy a camera, I'll take care of you." And for me, I saw myself more as a COO or a CMO, or that's at least what I thought we agreed to. That, sure, I was producing media, but it was in order to promote the company and in order for us to move forward, right? But over the past year or so, we went, like I said, all by myself from zero to Post Malone. But Post Malone, he kind of took more liberty, right? Whereas previously he really didn't do much groundwork. So he started, looking at it like, oh wow, this is my business, right? And so he kind of took what relationships and goodwill that I had developed locally and then pivoted into DJs, but then didn't include me in any of the deals with the bars, right? That he flat out told me, oh, well, I couldn't find a way to include you in the deals with the bars.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, right? And so we had an operations agreement, and he actually, within the past year, offered me a buyout. But when we spoke to the lawyer, he basically balked. That he basically said, "Oh no, I never said that," and he wanted me to sell my equity for nothing. So I was ready to sign a non-disclosure agreement, which obviously now I'm talking about it, and a non-compete. But he totally just came to the table, pushed me out of the company, took all the goodwill that I had generated. So I just spent the
So
last.
where
What's up?
so where are you now with that? You're not working with that guy anymore.
Exactly. So I'm just kind of taking what equipment that I had purchased and making my own content, and not
Yeah.
saying that I'm more of a behind the scenes kind of guy, that I've somewhat had to force myself in order to make my own content. That I'm sure in his mind, he was probably thinking, oh, well, Tony, you've learned so much, like you're the one that's, getting all the advantage from this relationship. But it's like, hey, man, if I wouldn't have met you in college and, tried to help your business, I probably would have, gone on to get a more legitimate job at another. But the problem is I went down that, I had that entrepreneurial itch. You know how it is,
Yeah, it is. Like there's no talking me into getting like a desk job.
Exactly.
It's not gonna happen. I can't do it. I got ADHD.
Yeah. And I know a little bit more about where I'm at. In front of our house, it's about 45 minutes outside of the city. So a lot of people complain about how far out of the city it is. But we own a 3,600 square foot building. Nobody else in the city that owns a studio owns their own building, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the major reasons why I was working with College Beats was to generate momentum for restoring this building and turning it into a production facility, right?
Okay.
So all the gains that I developed over these several years were all to culminate into the opening of this studio, right? But now that I'm no longer working with College Beats, I'm kind of going out on my own in a sense that I have all this production experience. I have a 3,600 square foot building. So I'm building a cyclorama. Have you ever heard of a cyclorama?
No.
So it's basically for animation. So like the corners of the room are curved at like a 30-degree angle or something like that.
Okay.
Like 4 foot or 3 foot off the wall curve. So then the curves aren't shadowed. So it's like perfectly smooth.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, actually, I know what you're talking about because I've been in some films here at SCAD and over at Savannah Film Studios. All the rooms are like that.
yeah. And locally, typically it goes for about $800 a day, and you can't really just rent it out per hour. So I was sitting at one of these interviews that I was helping produce when I met a producer called Lunar Thought, and he said, "Hey man, if you would do $200 an hour, that would be a great deal. So rather than doing $800 a day, I want to do $200 per hour." Right?
For what?
For renting out the studio.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of the vision. And we also have 3,600 square foot. So we still have a separate room. We have a kitchen, a bathroom, a storage room, and an office. Um, and we're putting up drywall as we speak. But you know how it is. Being a family property, it's going at family speed. It's not going at contractor speed. It's taken a solid 2 years since we got the mechanic out. It's a hell of a process, especially with the virus going around now too. Uh, so that's really why I've been reaching out to people.
It could eventually turn into contractor speed. You know what I'm saying? Like those donkeys. Those are donkeys. Yeah. Like you get the funds for it. Next thing you know, it turns from family project to personal project real quick.
Yeah.
And not to say to cut your family out of it, but to get to where you want to be, go ahead and get it done, and then I don't know. I'm just talking like best case scenario.
No, I love it. I love it. Because I speak to a lot of people, and in a perfect world, that would be the case. That it that's the challenge, really. That everybody
turned it into Airbnb/studio, so like artists come and rent it out, and also have a place to stay, like an Airbnb studio.
Exactly. Like that's kind of had the vision where. Have you seen those like in LA where it's kind of like a co-living space where there's like massive like bunk beds, but they're like heavy duty?
Yeah, my buddies in upstate New York, they opened up a studio, and it's an Airbnb studio as well.
Yeah, that's very dope.
Yeah, super sick.
Yeah, and for me, I want to talk more, because it's really hard locally, being in Cincinnati, that I've got to be able to reach out to other people, and it was definitely nice talking to you. I'm trying to think because we've been all over the place, and then I kind of gave you a bunch of background, but I know that you're on like a 9-hour drive or a 4-hour drive. 7-hour drive. So you've got plenty of time. So that's why I kind of have just been bullshitting here, giving you a little bit of my background, and because I always try to treat people how I want to be treated, and I think I've generated so much good karma over the past several years, of helping people, and that's I think at the end of the day that's all I can do, that whether or not I'm successful or not, I'm going to be able to, go to sleep at night and say I've tried my best. And so, all right, let me think where I want to go with this. So I'm trying to think, like, do I want to use this entire episode, or do I want to? So what I want to do is let's pause for a second. Let's take a couple breathers, and then I'm gonna take a drink of water. And then I'm gonna like flat out, go to the very beginning and just do another intro, just for shits and giggles, and then try to, redo it, and then we'll kind of decide, which one that we prefer. The super raw, 30 minutes that we did previously, or what we're about to do. So I'm gonna take a couple breaths and drink some water here. So,
Good to go.
yeah, I'm going to just take another sip here. Make sure the levels are good. And I'll cut off this little, intro here.
Yeah.
Are we ready?
Yep.
All right, so what I'm going to have you do is introduce who you are and where you're from.
Okay. Ready to go?
Yep.
All right, guys. So my name is Mason Wheelock. I'm from Saratoga Springs, New York, and I'm living in Savannah, Georgia.
Great. And I know I first got introduced to you through Mike SB. So I want to have you go ahead and talk a little bit about Mike, how you know him.
Yeah, so I met Mike through Instagram. Like we were talking about earlier, we have a similar friend, Anthony who goes by Zio. He performed at my festival, Adventure Fest in New York last summer, and I was trying to get Mike up there for that event, but it didn't end up working out. But we stay in touch through Instagram, and that's just kind of how I know Mike. And I really like what he does. I like his music, and I just like his vibe and his style. We kind of connect through that way.
Sure. And I think I share the same opinion on Mike. He has a very positive attitude. And I know you also mentioned earlier about how he comes up number one on your timeline, and you're always, getting to see him in the mornings, waking up. And, it's just a really good personality.
Yeah, exactly. I wake up in the morning. Like most people these days, I'll check the social medias real quick before I even get out of the bed. And first thing on the timeline, on the feed, on Instagram would be Mike. What's up, guys? Or like, good morning, guys. And it's like, great. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I think, that's a big part of social media for everybody is reaching out. And that's what we're doing today, reaching out to you. And, due to the virus, I've been doing a lot of these audio based podcasts, and calling is very easy. So I just want to let everybody know that if you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you have found any value, if you enjoy the individuals that I've been featuring, definitely check them out down in the description below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. So, what I would like to first ask you is what inspired you to get into your business or your passion? Like, what was that first inspiration?
so I started a clothing company when I was 17 in high school called Adventure Brand. I had a little gig with a buddy before that where we'd go to the dirt bike races and take videos of people and put them together and make these little videos of our buddies. And we made some shirts for that. We kind of called it Real Deal Productions. And that didn't end up working out. That fizzled off. And my buddy McCoy Shine, actually, we started that up together. And he was in Pennsylvania and I was in New York. And I don't know. I think we were like sophomores or juniors in high school, so it was like very hard to do, and we weren't that motivated. Anyways, we weren't on the same page with that one. So then I wanted to start my own thing, and I started ADV Brand. So like this is kind of how I tell people like what got me going with it. So my senior year, like any high school, you know how there's cliques and groups, and these people hang out with those people, and those guys kind of just stick by themselves. And here's like the stoners and this and that. You know how it goes. So I was one of those floaters that I kind of just, or I see myself
hanging out with everybody.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't just,
Isn't this so weird? Like how people because I'm very similar too. That I didn't really care who I hung out with. I was nice to everybody.
Yeah. There's definitely some like groups that like people are like assigned to, like go to school, don't talk to anyone else besides these guys. All right, like. But anyway, so
senior year, we had like late arrival to class and early release and extended lunch and all this and that. And me and like a collective group of people would go to the state park on our lunch breaks. And there was this one spot that we'd all go to and link up and hang out. And back in the day, we were smoking or whatever, and then we'd go back to our classes and just have a good rest of the day. But we'd hang out, listen to music, shoot the shit, have a good time, and then go back to class. And one day I carved the word adventure into a tree down there in the state park. And I came back the next day for lunch, and there was like 30 names carved into the tree, and kind of used what I had started there as like a blank canvas. And people just started like drawing things on the tree and writing their names and little notes. And I thought it was cool. It was like I did this one little thing, and like people jumped on it, and look, now it's like a collective thing. So it was just a little insight, and I was like, you know what? Maybe if I do something that people like they'll want to buy it. Turn this into a business thing, and like legally.
Sure.
So I made a run of hoodies. I drove up to Massachusetts to Pittsfield, Massachusetts, to Massive Graphics. Shout out to Mike from Massive Graphics, also Sandbox Kings, which he's probably formerly known as Sandbox Kings more than anything. But really good guy. He taught me how to screen print and everything.
Nice.
I think I was 17 at the time, so I drove up there to his place and he showed me how to do it. And we made a run of hoodies, and I sold all these hoodies at school and throughout the next summer. And I was like, hell yeah, this is awesome. I can make money doing this, and I enjoy it. People like the design. Like, it's just like an easy way to meet people too, because they're like, oh, you're the one you're adventure. You're like, yeah, like that's my clothes. And they're like, oh, cool. Like, you got anything on you for sale? And I'm like, oh yeah, I do. Boom. Next thing you know, you get a sale and you just met a new person.
Yeah.
And it works out. But that's how I got started in that. Watching the movie Into the Wild with like Christopher McCandless, Alexander Supertramp. Have you seen that movie Into the Wild with the bus?
Yeah.
That was like a big inspiration for Adventure Brand too. I've always kind of wanted to be like off the grid like that, and as I've gotten older, I don't really want to be too much off the grid.
Yeah, I was talking to a girl. I was talking to a girl that I just met that is building a bus.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and to live in, and we kind of, had a little bit of a falling out over the toilet. That she didn't want to spend the money in a nice compacting toilet. She was just thinking to do a bucket and some straw or some wood chips.
She was going real plain and Jane, huh?
Yeah, but she's throwing in electric, doing all the plumbing. Like, it's really interesting. And I wasn't trying to like rain on her parade or anything like that. But wouldn't you say the toilet is probably the most important thing? If you're gonna sure, but if you're gonna spend money, I mean, a toilet's pretty important.
Yeah, at least get like your little cheap compost toilet for the van.
Yeah, and in no disrespect by any means, and I even wanted to go over there and shoot a video, and I probably will, go over there and shoot a video of the bus, and it's all constructive criticism here.
What kind of bus is it?
A full-on school bus.
Oh, like a full-length school bus?
Yeah, flat out. And it's pretty cool. She's actually got it in a pool barn. So the bus is inside as she's working on it. So big shout out to her. It's like old schooly or something like that. I could share it with you. But she plans on putting like a cast iron fire in the bus. So there's that as well. That I don't know how that would work versus doing like an electrical heater or something like that.
You'll need a chimney or something, dude. Imagine having a wood burning stove in a vehicle.
A small bus with all that carbon monoxide and stuff. Yeah. Well, I probably shouldn't add this, but I don't know where we're going with this. But see, I'm trying to think.
That's kind of just like one thing so far that I touched on was adventure. I mean, I got a lot else going on. I got the school going on, and I just got back into riding, and
yeah. So we talked a little bit about it in our pre-conversation, but talk to me about riding. You know, you mentioned racing. Like, what's the whole background into dirt bikes?
Yeah, so my dad got me a bike when I was 4, and then we started going to the races when I was like 5 and 6. And he raced too up until I was probably about 12, maybe a little bit younger. And then either he got hurt or just put his money and energy towards me. But yeah, once I got a little bit older, we started to kind of get more serious with it. Not too serious, kind of just regionally. We never really went full out for nationals. Never had the money to get like competitive machines, to be able to do decent at nationals. Yeah. So we didn't really do that route. Motocross is such an expensive sport.
Yeah, like 4-stroke 250s or something like that.
Yeah, if you go all out and you're spending a lot of money every year, and we just didn't have the funds for that. So I think when I was 18, I moved down to Georgia, and I lived at a training facility called Moto VIP. So I lived on this motocross facility and trained there for about 4 or 5 months. Then I tore my ACL and my MCL and my meniscus, and I had to go home and get surgery. And fast forward a year, between that surgery, another surgery on my ankle, some mental health problems
that everybody deals with.
Right. I wound up in jail.
Yeah, that's a story.
We are May 2017 now in my life, and 19 years old. I got arrested for drug trafficking. I got caught up, and I got booked away. So now I'm facing a lot of time in prison, and I had a good lawyer, and I got myself into a rehab program through Willingway in Statesboro, Georgia, and I went to their extended treatment program, and I was there for 13 months. All in all, it was like an 18-month ordeal, and I got really good help. It was really good. Like, I wouldn't change it for the world. That saved me from having to be in jail and be in prison, and I met so many cool people. You'd never think, but like the people you meet in the halfway houses, the guys you meet in the halfway houses, and the girls you meet in the inpatient, like these are such creative people. Like these, like I'll call them like my best friend. Us, like being addicts, we have such different brains, It's like it's hard to explain.
Chemistry. No, and you know, and I haven't really been too public with my own situation, but you know, being manic depressive and bipolar, you know, that it is a everyday struggle of, you know, being 150% in or being 150% out. You know, I've dealt with my own challenges.
Yeah, no, as we all do, right?
Yep.
And I don't know, going through, I think this is also a huge takeaway for me. Going through all that makes me so open, dude. I can talk about that stuff with anybody because now I know I have the tools for myself.
Yeah.
But why? Like, how selfish is that? It's just like I learned so much.
Well, it's like learning vocabulary that, you know, it's not like you're in your first grade class. You know, sure, they may teach you, you know, vowels and subjective sentences, but, you know, they don't teach you about reality. You know, and reality is, you know, we're all brought up in different environments. And as Warren Buffett says, the zip code lottery, you know, and not that I know your situation, but I was very lucky. You know, I was glad that I got out of hip hop when I did because to be completely honest, all of these giant bands or rappers are really just fronts for drug trafficking organizations. I mean, look at Juice World. Juice World killed himself, after his plane got, caught up with customs, trafficking stuff from California into, I don't know if it was Chicago or Detroit. That is the sad, unknown. It's kind of out there because obviously, Wiz Khalifa, Snoop Dogg, Wiz is from Pittsburgh, you know,
Yeah.
like all of these rappers, all of these artists, it's basically just fronts for trafficking organizations. That you got to think about it. All these artists are on tour. They've got giant buses, giant semi trucks worth of equipment. Who's gonna second guess what they're doing? Have you ever thought about that?
I mean, I guess not. I mean, I'm sure I definitely have, but like, then you think, then you look into it like this, like they have big security teams, but could you imagine, all right, there's going to be a big show. Imagine the security that town, that state has to hire to like check everyone who comes in, especially the artists and their entire team. I doubt it's, all right, just because this is so-and-so, just let them in. I don't feel like people are that naive. I know people got to know what's going on.
Well, sure. What I'm saying is that it's not like they're doing their bad business at the shows. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying something completely separate to the shows themselves. Like, I'm not talking about, like, business going on during the shows. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, on the way somewhere or after a show or before a show. Something that has nothing to do with the actual shows. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like secondary and third entity people that aren't even really involved, but they're quasi involved. This is just something that I have experienced, that I personally have been very lucky, that I've never put myself in that position. That, the difference between you and a lot of other people is you got caught. Where would you be if you wouldn't have gotten caught? That
I'd be dead. I would have been dead. I'd be dead because I was taking drugs and I was taking them too much and taking too much of them.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm glad I got caught up. Honestly, it was it was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that, find that very interesting.
Oh, well, no, dude, like, the more people you meet in my situation that say, like, they've had a problem and then they got caught and it changed their life around, dude, it's for real, because if I wasn't caught, most likely I'd probably be dead. And I'm not just saying that just, to get attention or anything.
Sure.
That's a legitimate, like, that could have been my future.
Yeah. And someone can look at that and, take that to heart. So, moving forward.
I hope some people do, bro. And the biggest thing is that I learned is if you have a buddy that you notice starts to dive into things more than you and the friend group are, specifically I'm talking about drugs, I'm talking about pills, anything, any type of drug that could arise into an issue. I'm not talking about smoking too much pot or anything like that. I'm talking about pills and even drinking. If you notice one of your buddies is out there drinking every night, getting plastered, causing issues, reach out and say something, because I have people reach out to me like right before I got arrested, like, hey man, you need to tone it down, like you need to take it easy, you're gonna get yourself in trouble. If I had heeded those warnings and like taken what they said to heart, maybe I would have done something different. But when you're in that cycle, when you're in such a strong cycle like that, you can't hear anything anyone's saying until like you really are facing something serious.
Yeah, and I've had to step away from friends that, became car salesmen, and all they did was come home and, slam back, a couple shots, couple beers every single night, and they couldn't go anywhere, because they were always drunk. That I wanted
Yeah.
them to come over and check out the studio, and be a friend. And what it would always turn out to be is by the end of the night, not saying we'd be getting into fights, but, they'd start questioning what I was doing. And, I didn't connect the dots because it's like, why am I even in an argument when someone's drunk and I'm not drunk? Like, this is like a drunk conversation. This isn't a sober conversation. So I shouldn't have held it against them, and looking back at it, I really shouldn't hold it against them. And I know now with, the virus, car dealerships have been hit really hard because, obviously in person showing people cars. So I haven't, maybe I should reach out back to them, but, it was just so hard because anytime I'd visit them, I'd be driving. They would never come and visit me, and then I'd go over there and have a single beer or two, and I started feeling uncomfortable, like I didn't want to have to drink or be, and obviously I have self control, so nobody's forcing me to drink, don't get me wrong. But, I didn't, I know myself, and I don't drink and drive, even if I've had a single beer, so for me, I just felt like it's not the right environment, and I didn't say
And
anything.
that's a big thing that comes with growing up too. Like
Yeah.
noticing you can't be around certain people as much as it must as much as it stinks and like
Yeah, he's a close family friend. I mean, he's probably my longest, closest friend.
Yeah, and there's gonna be people in different periods in your life where you just have to not surround yourself with those types of people because they're not on the same wavelength you're on.
Yeah. And we liked fishing and different things like that, but whenever we would fish, he'd never want to be on camera. He didn't have any social media. He was a cool guy and everything. Same age, like likes golfing a lot now. But yeah. So talking about the past and moving forward onto the future, what would you say are your short-term goals? Like, now that you're moving forward, what are some like short-term goals that you plan on accomplishing over the next couple weeks, days, and then we can get into more, long-term vision, different things like that. But talk about what your plans are for the next couple weeks.
So I'm going home to New York right now. I'm on my way to Tennessee, a little bit outside of Nashville. I'm going to White Bluff, Tennessee, to meet up with my best friend Derek Brock and his family. They just recently moved to Tennessee. They lived in Georgia for a year, and before then, they lived in New York, and that's how I know them because family friends.
Yeah.
His mom used to babysit me. So this goes back really far, and we grew up going to the races together. They were the only people around the area that had a motocross track at their house. So my dad would pick me up after school in elementary school. Like, this is the roots. He would pick me up with the KTM 50 in the back of the truck, and we'd go over to Derek's house and ride. And then I'd go home and do my homework, and then I'd go back there the next day. So like I've known Derek for the longest time. Anyways, I'm headed to Tennessee right now to meet up with Derek. We are going to New York tomorrow, and we're going to be home for about 2 weeks. It's kind of like a riding trip, like a little retreat. But my plan as far as business with this trip is I want to reach out to some local businesses back home and see if they need any merch made, any, promotional items, because I do that as well. I work for a promotional item franchise in Brooklyn, Georgia, called Catalyst Promotions. Sorry, there's a cop behind me. Catalyst Promotions out of Brooklyn, Georgia. So I'm a sales rep for them. I worked in shop, like on location, for 2 years as a screen printer and embroidery tech. and learned a lot, sharpened my skills, and now I can go out and sell and kind of know what I'm talking about when I'm talking to customers and give them the best products for, the best deals I can possibly give them.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna reach out to some people when I'm home in New York and see if I can get some sales locked in. That'll be cool because I'm not really I work at a restaurant in Savannah, and while I'm home in New York, I'm not going to have any income. So it'd be nice to
make some flips.
Exactly. I'm not bringing any merch with me too because I didn't want this trip to just be about me. Like, this is Derek.
No, like you said, this is a time to chill and ride.
Exactly. I'm not bringing merch to have people be like, yo, let me get this, let me get that. I have the website. They can go on the website and get it if they like it, or I can mail it to them when I get back. But,
yeah, and that's very important. And, coming back to my background with College Beats, the lawyer that I set up, to handle the operations agreement and all the full nine with College Beats, also owned a tech company. So he was willing for, at cost to build us our own website that could, sell our own merch. And that was originally my whole plan with College Beats. But guess what ultimately happened? My partner took one of the DJ's brother and paid him a few $1,000s, and we didn't get a website for a year or two. And it had no functionality to sell anything on either. Right? And as of right now, all it is a basic landing page.
Really?
So that was kind of the end of the situation, that I had the detailing business. Through the detailing business, worked with the promotional franchise, screen printing, embroidery, similar background to yourself. But I never really got hands-on experience. So you probably got more hands-on experience than I did. But one of my main dreams is to actually have the embroidery and screen printing in our shop. That, since we have 3,600 square foot, I've got a building. So, and whether or not it's sublimation would probably be the best route to go, but we'd need like 20 grand. But, there's probably cheaper sublimation machines too. So that's maybe something that we can have a conversation.
We just got it actually last year. I was there when we got it.
Nice.
We got a direct engraving machine. It's an Epson. It's huge, dude. The thing was like $35,000.
Yeah, it's amazing. So that was kind of my situation, that it's important. I mean, how important is it to you to be able to sell things online?
Yeah, dude, it's huge because, especially in this day and age, I don't have all the time in the world. I'm in school. I'm a full-time college student.
Yeah.
So,
what are you studying?
I'm studying fashion marketing and menswear.
Cool.
Yeah. Savannah College of Art and Design. Really cool place. Have you ever been down to Savannah?
Relative vacations, I've probably been through it. But, pre-2008, life used to be a lot better for everybody, right? We went from, going to Florida every summer, going skiing every Thursday in the winter, going on ski trips for weekends in Indiana. Life used to be a lot better.
That doesn't even happen to my family anymore. We have a my grandparents anyways, they have a vacations club in Disney.
Yeah. And
we would go down there every winter for, I think February break for school up in the north. Because you're from Ohio, I'm from New York, we get the snow.
Yeah.
And down here, that's not an issue.
And are you upstate New York?
Yes, sir. I'm Saratoga Springs, upstate.
Okay. Do you know where Binghamton is? Binghamton. Or how close are you to that?
About 3 hours. That's where the New York State Championship used to be for motocross.
Oh yeah.
So we did a lot of traveling to Binghamton.
Yeah, I've got a friend that I met on LinkedIn that used to be a stockbroker on the floor, and he's now retired. His dad owned the firm down there, so he kind of had the daddy connection. But after 9/11, he was like, all right, I'm done. I'm getting out of here. And he retired when he was 30. You know, got into Google at like $80 a share at the IPO, got into Facebook at like $14, Twitter at $14, and just, you know, kicked butt and took names. And over the past few years, I've been pushing him into Tesla and pushing him into Spotify recently, and he's done real well. But he's a private guy. He doesn't want to be on my podcast, so, you know, unfortunately, nobody will get to hear from him. But you know, he's a pretty private guy. So that's my relationships with anybody from New York. And I was just also up there with another artist named Dylan Holland that I actually went to high school with. But he was moving down to Nashville, and I shot a couple videos for him. But, you know, it's hard. You know, when you're moving down to Nashville, I can only help you so much, you know. And I was more or less doing him a favor, you know, and that's hard. You know, like we were talking about earlier with family. It's hard to work with family. It's hard to work with loved ones that you've known. You know, that doing business with family is not a recipe for, you know, always the best situation, you know.
True.
But some people are lucky. You know, some people are lucky. You know, that, I don't know, for me, I've always intentionally let people take advantage of me as quickly as possible, because I'd rather know you'll take advantage of me sooner than later, you know, because I'd rather know it sooner than later so then I can't hurt the rest of my network. You know, like, I'd rather you take advantage of me than take advantage of the rest of my network. You know, so that's been the hardest thing, being a video producer, that, you know, actually earning any money. You know, that for me, media has always been promotion. You know, that all these interviews, it's not like I'm getting paid from anything. You know, I really don't have an agenda, you know, other than develop relationships, you know, with people like you and, you know, potentially your brand. You know, maybe that could be something that we could work in to something, you know, whether or not that's like a coupon code or, you know, something that we could work out. That's what I'm really missing. You know, that I think the majority of YouTubers, they have their full-time hustle that they use video to, you know, promote and have a, you know, something to sell, you know, a point of sale, right?
Yeah.
And have you,
sure, like the Nelk Boys, you know, Nelk Boys.
Yeah, exactly, like affiliates. I mean, have you ever thought about having affiliates?
Having a billion?
No, an affiliate, like an affiliate link, like to where like you would work with people like Mike SB or people like me, you know, in order to advertise your brand.
Yeah, like you were talking about, like flipping a discount code, and next thing you know, like we could work something out like that.
And, you know, that's a conversation for another day. I was just more or less talking about, you know, we were talking about short-term goals, you know, long-term goals. So what would you say, you know, you're taking a little bit of a trip now.
So let me get
what's your long-term vision?
There's a couple more things I wanted to hit on. So, like, this trip is, you know, it's like a good refresher. We're riding, we're going to have fun, see family, then we're going to come back. And when I come back to Savannah, my buddy Caleb's moving down here to Savannah with me when we come back from New York. Like, he's in New York right now, and then Derek and I are going to New York, and then we're bringing Caleb back with us. And Caleb's moving down to Savannah, Georgia, and he's got some background in music and graphic design. He's the one who's helped me with graphic design and all my designs with the Venture brand since the beginning, and even like photography and video.
And does he use Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop? How does he make the designs?
He uses both.
Okay.
Yeah. But short-term goal with Caleb is to get, or like short-term goal in general is to like get Caleb down here, get Caleb situated, and then once Caleb is situated, I want to start knocking things out, me and him, boom, boom, boom. So on need to get Adventure Brand up and going again. I haven't really done much with it in the last year since the festival. Kind of that was the last hurrah. Had the festival, okay, mark that off the list. Like that's something I wanted to do. I want to do that again. It just wasn't.
Yeah, talk about the background of the festival. How did it become to be?
I will, but that's not something I can do this year because of coronavirus and everything like that. So I kind of knew actually going into this year, like after last year's festival, I was like, you know what, I want to take a leap year, like a gap year from doing it. And it's a good thing I did and didn't put any time and effort into it because look what came about this year, coronavirus.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of another one of those blessing in disguise moments. But back to what I was saying, I want to get Caleb down here. I got the website up and rolling again. I have a little bit of merch coming out, and I want to start designing things, working on things with people like you were saying, affiliates, start doing some type of affiliate program, and just really connect as many people as I possibly can together and just create like a good time.
Yeah. Well, and you could always think about it like this as well. Doing like an online concert experience where it would almost be like Saturday Night Live to a certain extent, where the performances would be recorded. Because something that I talk to a lot of people about is, yeah, it's important, to get people out. Like, it's a way to get tickets, it's a way to actually get feet on the ground. But much more people are going to watch it online. So if you somehow cut out the middleman and even, maybe let's say the live, we could put, a certain price on, if we really wanted to, or, let's say the documentary itself, could have some sort of cost. If somebody wanted to come to the website, and actually get a 4K file of the entire documentary or whatever, but have the festival, but from the perspective of a full production, right? And I mean, the craziest thing would be doing like a 360 VR type of deal where, people could, put on VR goggles, not saying that we could sell like proprietary goggles or something like that, but, that it would be a different type of experience because, I mean, are people really going to be wanting to go out anymore? I mean, this is the end of the world.
It is different. Yeah.
So we got to think about things, that like these live shows like we're doing right now, like consistent content, where in a perfect world, everybody would have their own studios and then could just live stream. That live streaming is, a huge thing. But yeah, I mean, when do you think festival venues, where did you have the festival?
Say again?
Where did you have the festival?
I have it in Greenwich, New York.
Is that upstate New York?
It was a venue, Paradox MX, the motocross track.
Okay.
It's a huge venue. They have ponds. They have like electric hookups for campers. I had a 24 by 18 foot covered stage with a whole sound team. Dan Dennis from Dennis Entertainment. It was legit. Like, I put some good money into this.
Yeah. I would ask you about budget, but that may be like private information that we can,
it's fine. It's fine. I mean, shit. If people want to know how much it took to put all that on, it was about $17,000.
And how many artists?
I had Carrington, the Has-Beens, the Neighborhood Dog, Zio, Cody Bricks, DJ T Swag. I had this other DJ, I forget who it was. That was kind of a waste of time and money and effort on my end.
Yeah.
With that individual or that group of people, but I don't even remember. See, I don't even remember who they were, and it was last year. So
Yeah,
it goes to show that they weren't an integral part of the event.
sure.
Anyways,
And how many people attended, would you say?
Came and gone throughout the weekend? 300.
Oh, great. And what was
So-
the prices of the tickets, and how, like, were there, if you bought the tickets before the event versus the day of, different prices?
Sure. Yeah, there was a price difference. I couldn't remember honestly off the top of my head, but if you bought your ticket before, you got a T-shirt, like you got an event T-shirt as well. So
Oh,
like,
there you go.
So, yeah, it's kind of an incentive.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to have as many online ticket sales before the event as possible to kind of have like a confirmation. Yeah, this amount of people are going to be there. I didn't want it to be a wash. I didn't.
Did you have to pay anything for the venue?
Yeah, I think I paid about $1,500 for the venue, and then I paid my artists. I had to pay the sound team like $7,800. Which was like that was a heck of a deal though, because that was the stage, the sound equipment, the generator, and their time.
Wow.
Yeah,
because when we met with Post Malone, he agreed to do a show with us for $60,000, which was a pretty good price. Typically it was $150, and my partner dropped the ball.
That's hella good, dude. That's insane. If you could get a show with Post Malone at $60,000 now, wow. Imagine, and if you can flip that, dude, you're gonna make hella money.
And that was in 2017.
In his prime, when he just started. Wow, dude. Yeah. Now there's no way, dude. That's like a $250,000 show.
Yeah, and we went down there. We met him. We hung out till 2:30 in the morning. I met his grandparents. It was a great experience. Down in Nashville, and it was a great opportunity. And you can't believe it. The guy that brought him to us, I had told him, like, hey, my partner's not ready. Give him some time. Because I had made the contact maybe 2 weeks, so I had impressed the guy so much that we did an event downtown Cincinnati called Punching for Peace. And, I came to videographer it, and I went over and beyond that. He introduced me to the event director, and they were all out of pop. So they gave me like $100, and I, with all my equipment, ran down to CVS. How the hell am I going to carry, $100 worth of pop, So I go up to the cashier, they're about to close, mind you, and I pull out my ID. I'm like, hey, let me take one of your floor jacks from the back room. You can keep my ID. I'll come and bring it back, right? And he said, oh, no problem. And he just helped me, right? And then we brought 2 floor jacks, and, so I'm supposed to be recording the event, but I'm going over and beyond, right?
What are you doing? Soda?
Yeah, so, it was just a random task, that I was given. But I'm sitting there, trying to video. And so, I do the good deed, make the good impression, and then it nets me this meeting, right? We rent an Audi, from Toro or whatever, and we drive down to Nashville. But I warned the guy, I said, hey, my buddy's not ready, because for me, to tell you a little bit more about my backstory, I belong to a German cultural society called the Donauschwaben. And I did like folk dancing. My mom does folk dancing. My dad dances. It's a big family organization, right? And we've got 16 locations all throughout the United States, and we're German. So we've got like 11 acres, so we've got like, 4 or 5 soccer fields at each of these properties. So what I wanted to do was a college beats fest in the Midwest and tour around the different, in the Northeast and the blah, 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 and that was the vision, right?
And just use y'all's property as the venue.
Yeah, and we own the property, and it's a nonprofit too, so as long as we would donate that, every 7 years, each of the groups get to go to Europe for a month, it costs like $100,000, most of our fundraisers are like cooking sausage, and making sausage, and we may make $2, $3, $4, $5,000. So we have to make sausage within those 7 years, quite twice a year, and so I thought, well, if I had this event and all the youth would be the staff, that because we would obviously be donating some money there, and then that would be a good look as well. And but also my partner's landlord was the GM of Riverbend, which is a venue in Cincinnati that's probably the biggest venue in Cincinnati. And we were projecting like $1 million to $3 million, right? Like we were projecting with like a $200,000 investment, all said and done, because it was Post Malone. They were gonna front it to us. Like, bruh, I'm telling you, they were gonna front us the tickets. They weren't even gonna like charge us because they're like, you're bringing in Post Malone, like we'll front you the tickets. Can you believe that? Like I said, yeah.
Say what? I didn't really.
The venue, because it was Post Malone, they were gonna front us the cost because because Post Malone's guaranteed tickets.
Yeah.
So like we were gonna get the biggest venue in Cincinnati for a song and a dance, and so we meet him. Everything goes well. We agree to a price, and the following day, a big part of the trip was I wanted the connection and my partner to become friends. So I kind of like embarrassed myself in order to make them get closer. Like it may be a little bit of strategy. That's like, I want to act like a nerd a little bit, in order for them to like get close, so then they can talk shit about me, right? And so that was successful. That they got a close relationship. So then after we came back home, because I'll just tell you that, I bought like a case of beer for Post Malone, and it was the only cold beer that he had, and I, presented it to him. And, just, how I am. Like, I'm very, like, the same way that I'm talking to you is how I talk to anybody, And, and that's somewhat embarrassing, but, this is who I am. I'm myself. And, so after we got back from meeting Post Malone, there was an opportunity to have a meeting that I was not told about, right? Between the connection and my partner. And my partner just says no. So so can you believe it? The guy that brought us down to meet Post Malone, the day after, asked for a meeting with my partner to just go over the details. And my partner doesn't call me and say, hey, what do you think about this? He doesn't say, oh, well, let's meet at Chipotle or somewhere public. He just said no. Can you believe that?
So it blew it.
Yeah, so like I got the entire connection, made a great relationship, got Post Malone's brother's number that he gave me. You know what I'm saying? Like Post Malone's manager, saw, because I had a good relationship that, his grandparents were on the stage, could barely see, so I was showing him footage. His grandpa came back up to me before he left to shake my hand. Like, I'm like super fucking chill, man, and he asked for a meeting, a follow-up meeting that next day. And what does he say? No.
Oh, yeah, I'd be all about that.
And for me back then, I've kind of rephrased my thinking, but I'm loyal. So I actually was offered by Post Malone's connection to leave College Beats at that time, right? But, when I give my partner my word, that is my bond. That, and I've somewhat struggled with that. I mean, what's your view on loyalty? Like how far does loyalty go? Have you had any interesting life experiences with loyalty and how that went awry?
I mean, loyalty as far as family, like family is pretty loyal to me, and I'm pretty loyal to my family. Hold on 1 second.
Sure. And I know we've really gone all over the place here. This is probably one of the deepest podcasts I've ever done.
Hey, this is good, dude. This is awesome.
No, and what I'm gonna do is I'm actually probably gonna like, trim up the last part of the last one where we were talking about, when we paused, and I may just like use this entire thing, cut up, cut up a little bit of bits here and there, but this is refreshing, and I want to do this more often. That if you're available, that if you're driving a bunch or whatever, anytime you're free to, brainstorm, I'm more than happy to chop it up.
Yeah, dude, it's always good to talk about just whatever, honestly.
Yeah, and that's not even the last of it. You want to hear the Tekashi 6ix9ine story?
Dude, yes.
Do we have time for that? So I will say this publicly. I believe that we may be the cause of his entire situation from the very core. Do you remember what ended up happening with him and his manager, how they were giving quotes to radio stations for $30,000 a show? And that like Shorty or who was Shoddy was Tekashi's manager at Treyway, right?
I honestly don't know.
You didn't follow any of that?
Not really.
Okay, so here's the whole situation on Tekashi 6ix9ine. Basically, he got upset because his manager was giving lower quotes than he was quote unquote actually worth. Like Tekashi's actually worth like let's say $90,000. He was giving quotes of like $30,000 to people, right? And then that's why Tekashi 6ix9ine sold them out and wanted to leave his management, because they were basically, taking advantage of him to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
And so, we were so at that time, after we stopped working with, obviously he dropped the ball on Post Malone, one of my other artists that I had developed a relationship with, Monty C. Benjamin from Cincinnati, had an event called Cincy Secret Show. So it was College Beats, Donuts and Alcohol, Double Sin, and some artists named Feel Art and Dana Wall. We had an event, and one of the DJs at the event was DJ Jado from 101.1 The Wiz, the radio station. And, I had dreamt of what the inside of The Wiz looked like. Since I was, I know, it was the only hip hop station in the city, right? It was like, heaven. It was like heaven, right? And I told Jado that, and he asked me if I wanted to produce the Freestyle Friday series. So I produced about 29 episodes, about once a week, up at the radio station. And through that radio station connection, we had an opportunity to get Tekashi 6ix9ine for $30,000. And at the meeting, they were expecting $30,000, and guess what my partner came up with?
What?
$5,000.
So Tekashi was there.
Yeah, well, not Tekashi, but the people. I don't want to get too poignant about who it was, because this is private stuff. I don't want to throw too many names out there. But the right people were in the right room, right? And, my partner, agreed to 30, the same way that he agreed to 60 to Post. And then the moment we actually had the right people in the right room, he comes up with 5,
Yeah.
And,
you can't be doing that once you get to a certain level of business. Like, there's no like lowballing. That's not a thing. Like, I just actually had to deal with that the other day. Like,
yeah, but I mean, $5,000 isn't even enough for, like you said, you did a show with, I don't want to disrespect you, but $17,000, that's at that level. And if we're talking about Tekashi or Post Malone, that's not even in the same ballpark.
Not even not even
So that was my situation where, at least with live events, that I know, the only way to make money in the music business is live events. So, I'm definitely interested in talking to you more. And, I know it is kind of hard because I don't want to say I've burnt bridges locally, but it's just kind of like, I built up a lot of goodwill amongst people, but due to the bridges that my partner has burnt, it kind of has, charred me up a little bit. So that's kind of why I'm reaching out more externally, because, I'm kind of like a I don't even know how to describe it. Like I'm I'm like a lion amongst like sheep, that it's kind of like hard, and that kind of has like a negative connotation, but like,
No, I know you want to be the big fish in the small pond.
no, what I want is everybody to work together as a unit. That like, I want everybody to make money. That the only way that I'm going to be successful is if you're successful. Because if I'm not providing value to you and you're not making, a time and a half what I'm charging you, what's the purpose here? We're just spending money. That everybody needs to have a purpose. And I think, locally, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, because there's a negative connotation with the word sheep, but I just feel that there is no music without the business. That if the business doesn't happen, you're broke. So, moving on from the event side of things, how did you do as far as merchandise sales? Did that help a lot? Did you break even? Like, what was the result of the show?
I did not break even. I came up like $5,000 short, and there was a guy at the event that really liked me, and he said, "Hey, whatever you didn't make from this event that you need to break even or leave with some money in your pocket, let me know and I'll write you a check." And I was like, "No way! Like, this guy, I don't even know you. Like, he came down from Maine, and I drove up from Georgia for this event. Like, I drove up from Georgia to make this event run. I single-handedly put this event on by myself, and I mean, I had some people helping me out, but I worked 2 jobs, put every single cent I made into it, and like, it still didn't turn out to be where I wanted it to be, but that was to be expected since it was the first year and there was very little preparation time, dude. Like, when I tell you I went to an event in February of last year and then I decided I wanted to do my own festival, that's what happened. I went to an event in Florida called Swamp Fest. It was a BMX festival, and I was like, "This is
Tell me about it.
Like, I was like, "This is so sick." It was called Swamp Fest, and they charged $30 a person at the door, and you just went there and had a hell of a time. They had events, they had music, they had merch, they had other people there selling merch. It was just a big party, and I was like, "This is awesome. I want to do this." And I could see making money from this, so I did. And when I say everyone there had a good time, dude, everyone there had that heck of a good time.
Yeah.
Like,
see, I come from the other side of it, where for me, I've gone to like Rush and Weird Al Yankovic and Dream Theater. All right, round 3.
Yeah.
Nice little drive there.
Right.
Yeah, so we're around the hour and 30-minute mark. I don't
Say
really
again?
recall what we were talking about last.
I I know that what I was getting at, I think, was my short-term goals and then going into my long-term goals.
Yeah. So go into your
So,
long-term goals.
yeah, so short-term is to get my buddy Caleb / fellow creative, my buddy down here and work together with him, and we'll be living in the same place. So it'll be really easy to create and like just work together on things, which is huge. Like being around somebody 100% of the time can be a positive thing and a negative thing at the same time, as you could possibly imagine. But I think we'll make the best of it because we're pretty good buddies as is. So that's short term. Long term, I want to take my degree and see what I can do with it. As far as I would like to work in the motocross industry and just be a part of this community that kind of raised me outside of my family, which was racing, growing up racing, and meeting all these different people and all the families I've met over the years and companies and all the experiences put into one. It's just been like such a great childhood. I feel like I'm still growing up. I mean, I am. I'm only 22, so like I feel like I'm still in my childhood kind of, and a lot of it has to do with these people that I just surrounded myself with over the years, and like growing up with them, growing up with these people's families and these kids, and I want to work for a company where I can kind of grow with families. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean by that or no?
Yeah, like, are you talking about with the companies?
Yeah, exactly. So, say like, all right, this is just an example. Say like Fox Motocross, like a motocross gear company. They make jerseys, pants, it's boots.
Yeah, they have like a different partnerships and different like in-house manufacturers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Like within the family of brands.
Yeah. Well, what I would like to do is be like personal relations with like brands and brands the people that the brand supports. So like, the kids the amateur motocross kids growing up, coming through the ranks that are sponsored by Fox, or the professional athletes who are sponsored by Fox and their families, how we go about dealing with their families and what they get, all that stuff. I just want to be a part of a company that has like family roots, because that's kind of how I was raised, and I don't want to go work for a big business and have to like the word you used the word sheep earlier. I don't want to be herded like a sheep. I want to be a part of something that's always growing and that can be looked at like a company that I grew up with. Have you ever heard anyone say like I grew up with this company or I grew up with that? Blah blah blah. It's just like the company was already there and the company is like a grown thing, but you were a part of this company throughout your molding years that
and they have more control over it too, because it's not like they have to deal with the board or stockholders or exterior elements. It's not a publicly traded company. It's a mom and pop type of situation.
Yeah, facts.
Yeah.
Or other things I could do with my degree. I could go work for Tommy Hilfiger and be like a product management guy for them. So like I could buy their materials and figure out the best way to turn raw natural goods into pieces that customers are going to buy from retail stores. I don't know. There's a whole lot I could do with my degree. I'm not really sure I'm like on dead set on what I want to do. I just want to do as much as I can do and be a part of many things that I possibly can be a part of.
No, and I love it. And I think, how long do you have until you get that degree?
2022. So
Okay.
I got a couple years.
So how long have you been studying it?
I just started in the fall.
Oh, okay.
Last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I had some
what
tutors
have
for
you learned? What have you learned so far?
Honestly, haven't even dived into any of my major courses, so I couldn't even begin to tell you what I'm gonna learn. I haven't even dived into any of my major courses yet. I've just done all the prereqs and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. And now that everything's online, I feel like it's gonna be such a different learning experience. I'll definitely keep you in the loop on things that I'm learning. I'm stoked to learn. When I was younger, I couldn't care less to go to school, but now I kind of know what I want to do, and fashion marketing is such a pinpointed degree. You know what I'm saying? It's not
well,
just
I mean, all social media, everybody, that's where they make their money is merchandise. I mean, look at Logan Paul with, the Maverick Club and different things like that.
Exactly.
I mean, that's even an avenue that you could go down. Whether or not it's representing different influencers, and then you get that cross marketing because the same people that you're selling their merch, they're also promoting your company to other influencers. That would definitely be something that I would be interested in being involved with. And I think, we'll definitely talk again. And I think, and whether or not it's a weekly thing or it's all right, guys. So once again, my phone had an issue. That previous cut was because my phone died. Now the call dropped. I'm going to give him another call.
So,
all right.
I either get a number from a no-caller ID or I got this number from
Yeah, that's me. That's me.
Okay.
It's really loud. Why is your volume really loud?
Is it?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Hold on, let me how's that?
I don't know. Yeah, when I turn up the mixer, I can mess with it again though. I'm trying to think. So where can people find you?
Say again?
Where can people find you? Talk about your different pages.
All right. You can find me on Instagram. I believe my name on Instagram is my name, Mason Wheelock. And then I have the Adventure Brand page. I believe it's ADV Brand _. And then I have a YouTube channel as well, Adventure Brand. So, yeah. But the best way to contact me is on my personal Instagram because that's the way I do businesses personally. I don't like to reach out to people through my Adventure Brand page. I just would like to make it more personal.
Yeah. And it was very easy to talk to you. So, as I continue to do these podcasts, I don't know if you listen to Joe Rogan, do you?
Yeah, a little bit.
He has his guests back on, so I really, want to have people back as much as they want to be back. It's pretty easy to produce this.
Yeah, and then it'll be easy because we already know how each other's going to be, and you can just we can just kind of fill in each other what's been going on and check on each other.
No, and start a business, that how let's create something together. Let's collaborate on a series or I want to see some of your merch, even if it's just to take some of, I mean, obviously I need to check out your website to kind of see what level you're at and what I can give advice on, because I'm also proficient in Illustrator and in Photoshop, so I have a lot of experience also. So, we'll definitely have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, always check it out and let me know what you think and stuff. And
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so you said you're going on this trip this week. When are you heading back home?
2 weekends from now.
Okay. Okay. So you're taking a little 2 week chill session on the dirt bikes with a good friend, and that sounds great, man.
Yeah, well, thank you for talking to me, dude. This has been good, and it's always great to make new connections.
Do you have any questions for me?
I'll talk to you for sure. But right now I'm driving, and I'm driving to Atlanta, so now I'm having to really pay attention.
Okay.
So
Yeah. No, and that's fine. And we're about at an hour 40. And this is probably the 7th or 8th podcast, so it's not going to come out for several weeks. So what we'll do is, I don't know if I want to post 2 hours worth of content, because IG limits it about at an hour. And also, we talked about a lot of things, that usually I keep things a lot more structured. So what we may do is get together again, and kind of give a more abbreviated summary type of episode. Or do you think I should just go for it and put up the full hour and 42 minutes? What did you feel? Because I feel like a lot of today was just us getting to know each other, right? And I think that's kind of hard to determine, because there's some people that, we got along, versus some people, right when I get on the phone with them, they're like, stone faced and, ready to do the interview and nothing else. And I think we really got along. So I think, today's pre-interview was more or less just us kind of vibing, and now we kind of know more about each other. We'll be able to find another time to do this again. Do you agree?
yeah, facts. Like in 2 weeks when I'm doing this job again back home.
Yeah, because I think we were too all over the place, but now we had that big conversation. I can pull shit.
I can plan with you. I'll be like, yo, let's just talk about this today.
Yeah. And we can still have our bigger conversation, but
as far as podcast.
Yeah, that's like in a perfect world, all of my podcasts would be this real. But it's just hard to put out that, the Post Malone story, the Tekashi 6ix9ine story, like a lot of that stuff I don't particularly want to be public about. And I really don't want to go back and have to edit that shit out, because it's a shitty story, and I don't want to talk shit about my partner, and I make my partner look he makes himself look bad, but I'm just the type of guy that I don't want any, miscommunication, and I'm sure you would appreciate that from me, that even if our business goes sour, we're not going to talk shit about each other,
Yeah.
And so I was just trying to be honest with you about what had happened. But, I don't know how comfortable I am about being that straightforward on my channel. Because I'm sure, there's a lot of people that listen to it. And, for me, like Joe Rogan, it's a process. This is only my 7th audio-based podcast. So I really haven't had much experience. So, some artists, they need to be, their hand needs to be held, right? Like we do need to talk and vibe. And then that second follow-up meeting or third is then, the full recording. But then we had developed a friendship, so I think that's valuable, and I don't know if I told you how I started the podcast. I had a producer from Vegas named Keon suggest to me, hey, Tony, you're great at interviewing people. Why don't you interview people as your content, right? So my whole goal was, trying to build my YouTube channel. that I've got about 860 or 70 subscribers. I'm, working towards 1,000. How many subscribers do you have over on YouTube? You said you had a YouTube channel.
I have no clue, dude. Maybe like 20.
Okay. So that's really my big goal, is to push my YouTube. So that's my agenda, basically. But I appreciate you talking. I want you to focus now that you're in Atlanta, and we'll talk soon, man.
All right, brother. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I gotta get going because it's getting real.
Yeah, here. Atlanta. All right, man. Be safe.
All right, bro.
All right, see ya. All right, guys. So that was a call with Mason Wheelock, a gentleman that I met through Mike SB, motocross type of guy. Has a couple brands, adventure brand, pretty decent following, some dope photography, dope clothing. Whether or not this podcast comes out or not, you'll be the judge.